On the 20th of July, 2022, a PUBG mobile tournament in Bangladesh was raided by police and more than 100 players were arrested. Almost all were high school and college students, hailing from areas like Dhaka, Narayanganj, and Cox's Bazar, who traveled from all across the country to compete in a friendly LAN event in Chuadanga. On the second day of games, the community center was surrounded by police, all attendees were detained, and their phones were confiscated. Anyone over the age of 18 was sentenced to 2 nights in prison, and the 6 event organizers faced criminal charges. So what is it about PUBG Mobile that if you're caught playing it, you could face jail time? Officially, extreme violence and addictiveness. Bangladesh isn't the only country where games and apps are being banned. Nations like Jordan, Pakistan, and Nepal have banned games like PUBG in the past. And while all have used the corruption of the youth as justification, there's more to the story than the classic maxim, video games rot your brain. In June 2020, India banned 59 phone apps, citing them as a threat to national security. During the ensuing months, more ban waves took place, and the number of apps available in the country continued to shrink. Among these were media giants like TikTok and Likee, games like Clash of Kings and Mobile Legends, and a series of sports betting apps. One of the most notable targets was PUBG Mobile. So what do all of these have in common? A connection to Chinese companies. India and China are 2 of the most populous countries in the world. Geographically, they're located right next to each other and share a border that's nearly 3,500 kilometers long. Since the 1960s, the 2 countries have been locked in a land dispute over various regions on the Himalayan border, being sparsely populated and poorly marked, not to mention being located in the tallest mountain range on Earth. Figuring out who owns what has been a source of contention for at least 60 years. In 1962, war broke out between the 2 countries over a region near northwestern India called Aksai Chin. Thousands died, and in the end, China retained a large portion of the land. During the 1970s and 80s, tensions between the 2 countries remained pretty high. But going into the 1990s, China and India came to an agreement and constructed what is known as a line of actual control, a geopolitical gray zone where both parties are allowed to patrol a partially demilitarized zone. While troops are allowed, they're forbidden from constructing permanent infrastructure and can't carry ranged weapons. For 2 decades, this system kept peace in the region, but that changed in 2013. After a series of standoffs in Depsang and the Demchok Valley, political relations between the 2 countries began to fall apart, and things came to a head as China unveiled a new, massive undertaking: the Belt and Road Initiative. Since 2013, a major part of China's policymaking has been to invest in foreign infrastructure. The goal is to extend China's influence and open trade with new regions, a quid pro quo suggesting that if we help you build roads and bridges and bolster your economy, you'll give us better trade deals down the line. Oh, and you will pay back those high-interest loans to help build everything. China has already invested billions of dollars in African countries like Zambia, Ghana, and Ethiopia, and many countries in South Asia in what some have described as debt trap diplomacy. Though claims of predatory lending have been disputed, many countries remain wary of accepting high-interest loans from Asia's preeminent superpower. Take Sri Lanka as an example. The country has been in a state of crisis for years. Civil unrest, increasing poverty, and a growing debt to Chinese companies are at the top of the laundry list of issues for Sri Lanka's debt crisis. After accepting loans to create the Hambantota port in the south, Sri Lanka's economy took a downturn, and they became unable to make loan payments back to China. With no other option, Sri Lanka was forced to lease the port to China for the next 99 years, effectively giving China control over one of the largest seaports in the country. Sri Lanka is estimated to owe more than $7 billion to Chinese corporations, and many Western countries point to this as an example of China's ever-growing influence. And it's not hard to see why. China has been aggressively pushing the Belt and Road Initiative into countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, looking to gain influence on all of India's closest neighbors. Pakistan is one of India's fiercest political rivals. When India was partitioned by the British in 1947, two countries were divided up based almost entirely on religion. Muslims were forced to migrate to the new country of Pakistan in the west, and Hindus to India in the east. What followed was one of the most violent and traumatizing death marches in human history, and tensions between Pakistan and India have remained high ever since. On April 20th, 2015, China and Pakistan began construction on the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, also known as CPEC, a $46 billion undertaking which would streamline the transportation of energy and resources between the two countries. The project built roads, railways, and a deepwater port in the Arabian Sea, totaling approximately 3,000 kilometers of infrastructure from Pakistan to China. However, the new economic corridor was built, unsurprisingly, on disputed land, specifically Gilgit-Baltistan, a region in northern Kashmir which India has laid claim to since 1947. In short, China and Pakistan, two of India's greatest rivals, started a building project in disputed territory and cut India out of the deal. That would not be taken sitting down. In response, less than 2 months later, India looked to solidify an ally of their own, Bangladesh. On June 6, 2015, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina met, negotiated, and settled on a historic agreement, simplifying the 4,000-kilometer border separating the two countries. The line separating Bangladesh and India was considered to be the single most complex land border in human history, comprising enclaves, which is when one part of a country is completely surrounded by another country, but it also had enclaves within enclaves and enclaves within enclaves within enclaves, the only third-order enclave in the entire world. After 40 years, little headway had been made in fixing the obvious issues, but the political climate in 2015 forced India to make a move. To sweeten the deal, India promised Bangladesh $4.5 billion in energy infrastructure and a $2 billion loan. The new positive relations between the two countries speaks volumes, especially since Bangladesh has been a target of China since 2013, and since China has tried to pledge almost $38 billion of their own money to build infrastructure in Bangladesh. To accept help from India says a lot. With newfound relations between Pakistan and China, and India and Bangladesh, tensions continued to rise. Following the construction of CPEC, India began bolstering their military presence along their border with China, who in turn did the same. The result was slow but gradual military escalation, which culminated in the Doklam standoff in 2017. With their countries on the brink of a potential war, Modi and Xi Jinping held summits in their respective countries in an attempt to mend relations. The summits were a surprising success, and for a few years, China and India started to become enormous trading partners. However, with the advent of COVID-19 and the subsequent lockdown of the world, India became wary of China's handling of the virus and the lack of transparency regarding data from Chinese companies. Simultaneously, in May 2020, clashes broke out on the northern bank of Pangong Tso Lake in Ladakh. Indian and Chinese soldiers exchanged blows, threw rocks, and attacked with nail-studded clubs. The confrontations continued over the next few days and resulted in numerous casualties on both sides, including 20 Indian soldiers killed. In response, the government initiated the first of many waves banning Chinese apps in India, targeting the likes of TikTok, WeChat, Hello, and many others. The clashes and subsequent digital fallout signaled the end of friendly relations between the two countries. And after increasing violence on the borders, in September 2020, India banned, you guessed it, PUBG Mobile. At the time, PUBG Mobile was one of the single biggest games in the entire world, and one of the biggest markets for the game was India. In April 2019, the game had 50 million daily active users in India alone. For a video game, that is a staggering number. And with 170 million downloads as of July 2020, also in India alone, meant there was a lot of money and information going from Indian phones to Chinese companies. Officially, PUBG Mobile was banned due to security concerns, as the app was deemed prejudicial to India's sovereignty, integrity, and national security. In response, Krafton, the developer of PUBG, tried to build a game that was more in line with Indian laws, so they created Battlegrounds Mobile India. Unfortunately, this game was also promptly banned when it was discovered that the game was still sending data directly to Chinese servers. Which brings us back to Bangladesh. Caught in between two world superpowers, policymaking can be very, very difficult. On one hand, you want to be free to govern your own country. On the other hand, you rely heavily on imports and loans from those with stronger economies. Compromise can be difficult, especially when you're classified as an LDC, a least developed country, and cannot sustain yourself without the help of your neighbors. Officially, Bangladesh banned PUBG Mobile because it is violent and addictive. Bangladesh's government feels strongly enough about the ban that they're willing to send armed officers to arrest high school and college students playing video games at a local community center. But whether the game was banned over concerns of morality or national security is one and the same. Video games and politics are becoming increasingly intertwined. Across the globe, data is becoming one of the most valuable commodities traded and sold by corporations. From targeted ads, to social media algorithms, to figuring out who you're most likely to vote for in an election, data is currency. And even information on the games you play can be bought and sold in the market of personal information. For countries like India, the thought of tens of millions of citizens using apps and algorithms deliberately tuned by their greatest political adversary is an understandably scary prospect. And their decision to ban 273 Chinese apps may have influenced others in the region to do the same. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to B, Cloud, Kiaostick, Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being Platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Marco and Steph for being our Diamond supporters. We hope you guys like this month's videos. If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.